So when it comes to storytelling, video games really are an unrivaled medium. They can tell a compelling story just as well as any movie or TV series, but they have the significant edge of allowing you to explore their worlds outside of that story. By empowering the player to reveal things about the world themselves, we are drawn into the narrative as subjective participants as opposed to an objective audience. Of course, exploring those worlds thoroughly can also feel like a huge waste of time sometimes. I mean, collecting all of the feathers in Assassin's Creed 2, for example, may expand a little bit on the story, but it's not super worth it. And then there are the surprisingly frequent times where you just get nothing, maybe an Easter egg or an ugly weapon skin. But for all of those ones, there are also some that carry real weight, sometimes actually a little too much weight, leaving you scratching your head by the end of the game if you never found them. So let's take a look at them today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 best video game reveals that you had to find for yourself. Number 10, Mia's Children, Psychonauts. Double Fine Psychonauts is a game all about finding hidden things, sometimes things that we try to forget. By travelling into the subconscious minds of numerous characters, we get a largely comedic game that is strangely entirely about trauma. Taking place in a summer camp for psychics, the game's early levels are crafted by the counsellors for the purpose of training their students. As expert psychics, they can make sure that you only see what they want you to see. So therefore there's no trauma here, just a ton of fun, right? Well, take Mia, the levitation teacher who uses her relentlessly cheery party girl attitude to craft a dance party where the kids can learn to levitate whilst having a good time. Unless that is you happen to come across a very small hidden room where you'll find one of the game's memory vaults, which are safes that basically people lock their memories away in. In Mia's case, this vault shows her past life as a caretaker of an orphanage. She cares for the children as if they were her own, until one day she returns from the market to find the orphanage in flames with her children perishing within. Then another room opens, which is full of fire and the whispers of her children begging to know why she abandoned them. Yay, secrets! Fun secrets? Number 9, Leviathan Bones, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Now, people who don't play too many games might not believe it, but Zelda conspiracy theorists are very, very real. Egged on by Nintendo's tenuous connections, references, and Easter eggs throughout the Zelda franchise over the years, a whole community of Zelda players convinced themselves that the seemingly standalone titles were, in fact, all connected. And even more surprising than this, well, they were right. They were also right in stating that the story spans 3 separate timelines. However, while Nintendo didn't waste time confirming that Breath of the Wild takes place close to the end of the timeline, they never actually said which one. The game is also packed full of Easter eggs from across all of the series, and there's no way to reconcile them all existing in one timeline, so many just assume that they were there for the fun. But especially of note are the 3 Leviathan skeletons that are found in this world. Early on, fans figured out that these bones resemble 3 magical whale-like characters. However, they don't all exist in one timeline, so I guess it's just more fun, right? However, Nintendo later confirmed that Breath of the Wild takes place at the end of all of the timelines, thus revealing that at some point something happens that crashes the different universes into one, an event that is almost sure to be part of a future game. Number 8, A Shared Universe, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. A staple of the Assassin's Creed games is following 2 interconnected storylines in each game, one taking place in the ever-changing historical era unique to each main entry, and the other set in the modern day. Another staple of the Assassin's Creed games is that pretty much everyone agrees that the modern day stories are boring and unnecessary, and yet Ubisoft keeps bloody making them. Probably the most forgettable of these is in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Now, I don't know how anybody thought that it was a good idea to randomly rip the player out of their Caribbean pirate adventure to cast them as a mid-level office worker reading emails, but Ubisoft, well, it's just weird like that sometimes. Among these emails was a seemingly spam-like brochure sent to the villainous Abstergo Corporation at the heart of every Assassin's Creed game by a company called Bloom, which are advertising their new operating system. And it wasn't for another year that Ubisoft launched their new series Watchdog, which focuses on a group of activist hackers combating Bloom and their omnipresent OS. It was a rather novel way of announcing that these 2 franchises exist in the same universe, and one that most only noticed many years later in hindsight. Number 7, Find Edgar Ross, Red Dead Redemption. Now, Red Dead Redemption is as classic and iconic as any modern video game, even all these years later, and one of the biggest reasons for that is thanks to its tragic ending. Having been extorted by Pinkerton agent Edgar Ross into hunting down and killing his former criminal associate, associates, John Marston is finally allowed to reunite with his family and avoid prison. Well, until he isn't, as Ross breaks their deal and leads a full-on assault on John's ranch. His family escape, but then the game picks up years later, now casting the player as John's son Jack. Now at first, this seems like a simple way for the developers to have an ending to their story, but still allow the player to continue exploring the vast open world. But even if you think you've done everything in this game, there's still one mysterious new side quest on the map in Blackwater. Through a series of interactions with various characters connected to John's journey, Jack will now track down the duplicitous Ross and kill him in a pistol duel, foreshadowing the cycle of violence and revenge that the previously kind-hearted Jack, it seems, is now cursed to continue. Number 6. The Fate of the Crew, Subnautica. Now you might not think that there'd be much story to Unknown Worlds' Subnautica. As a survival/crafting game in the vein of Minecraft, it casts you as the lone survivor of a spaceship wreck on an uninhabited planet made up almost entirely of ocean. You might say it's hard to write a compelling story with only a single silent protagonist swimming and building a very cool C-Lab-style base, but unless you're new to gaming, you could probably have guessed that the game doesn't lack for audio logs. The audio logs that are put in your path, often placed near quest objectives, mostly fill out the backstory and lore, but there is one bunch that you'll have to find yourself. Strewn about the map, you'll find the story of the only other ship to ever crash land on this watery planet. Finding their eroded old bases, farms and labs, you learn about how only 3 survivors got by for years on this world until a conflict in the group leadership tore them apart and led them one by one to their deaths. Or did it? Because you see, Subnautica's half-sequel Sub-Zero flashed out the rest of this tale, and it is definitely worth exploring. Number 5. Mayor McDonough, Fallout 4. One major theme that runs throughout Fallout 4 is paranoia. With the mysterious institute sending out androids or synths to keep the populace destabilized, NPCs are suspicious of everyone all the bloody time. Piper, a journalist and one of your first party members, adamantly espouses her theory that the mayor of Diamond City, McDonough, is a synth. But seeing as Piper and McDonough's relationship consists of exchanging volleys of slander and accusation at one another, this theory is easily dismissed as ammunition in their petty rivalry. However, if you choose to destroy the Institute and then make your way to Diamond City in the post-game, you'll find a frenzied McDonough, having been outed as a synth, holed up in his office with hostages. After confronting the mayor, you'll have 3 options. Let him leave Diamond City in exile, fight him, or make him stand trial, which in typical Fallout 4 fashion also means just fighting him. It's a fun reveal of a theory that you've probably forgotten about by the time that you make it to the end of the game, and it's a great satisfaction and a relief to see Piper vindicated, and to finally have an excuse to kill this loud-mouthed wannabe dictator. Number 4. The Arkham City Tease, Batman Arkham Asylum. Batman Arkham Asylum is famous for many reasons, being the first truly great Batman game, having a revolutionary combat system that would be imitated by other games for years, and for packing a ton of content into a relatively small space. And it's also famous for having one of the best secrets in video game history. There's no indication that this secret exists. In fact, it doesn't even count towards your in-game completion. And if the game tells you you've done everything, most people are inclined to believe it, because there's no reason that anyone would pick a totally inconspicuous wall in the warden's office, place 3 explosives on it, and then detonate them all to reveal a room that contains the blueprints for what will become Arkham City. And it's a pretty big deal since it is basically a stealth sequel announcement. And admittedly, this one might be a technicality on this list, because while developer Rocksteady intended for you to find this secret, you didn't. In fact, no one did. Rocksteady had to come out and tell us about it, which is a valid lesson for game developers that there is no such thing as a secret being too secret. Number 3. Brendan, Cyberpunk 2077. Now, the concept of artificial intelligence is omnipresent in the world of Cyberpunk 2077, despite not technically existing. Having already been outlawed, you eventually learn that this world is full of rogue online AI, but they've all been contained by the government behind a kind of super firewall. So while the concept and threat of AI is stitched into the atmosphere, it isn't something you encounter much outside of one unique circumstance that is central to the plot. Well, that is, unless you happen to be hanging around the mega building 8H and overhear a conversation between a woman and a very cheerful joke-loving machine. Actually, it's less of a conversation and more of a peppy therapy session, and the therapist in question is Brendan the vending machine. You see, Brendan is a vending machine with an experimental AI programmed into it, which intended to make him intuitive and ask about the kind of snacks and drinks that customers would prefer best. But what's happened is that he's so intuitive that he understands his customers better than most of the humans in their lives. Unfortunately, this is Cyberpunk though, so there isn't actually a happy ending for Brendan. He's eventually sent back to the factory for a full software wipe. But you know what? We stan this sensitive snack dispensing king. Go Brendan. Number 2. Vincent and Yuffie, Final Fantasy VII. The legacy of Final Fantasy VII and its iconic cast have been so persistent over the years that it's kind of easy to forget that 2 of its main characters were actually secrets, but nothing since the original game's release has treated them as anything other than optional. In fact, one of them, Yuffie, was the central protagonist of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, an additional chapter and side story to the main game. And the other of those characters is the goth vampire edge boy Vincent Valentine. You see, in the original PlayStation release, Yuffie could only be unlocked via finding her as a random encounter, and recruiting Vincent required uncovering a secret code and freeing him from a locked coffin. But what's strange is that both of these characters are fairly vital to the plot. Without Yuffie, you never learn about Wutai, the world's only other superpower and threat to the evil Shinra Corporation, and the story of war between the two informs quite a lot of your understanding of this world. Vincent is the bigger reveal, however, as only by unlocking this secret character do you reveal a breadth of information that is essential to fully understanding the backstory that ultimately led to the events of this game, making him probably the most critical hidden reveal in gaming history. And number 1, Class 1 Patient Health Record, Nier Automata Potato Patata. Yes, that's right, I finally got to say it again. You see, early on in Nier Automata Potato Patata, there are many indications that it's set in the same world as its prequel, but the fact that Automata Potato Patata is set a staggering 8,000 years later also begs the question of whether or not this even matters. You see, Nier 1 ended with the slow and inevitable extinction of humanity. In attempting to save his daughter/sister, depending on which version of the game you played, Nier, namesake of the series, literally doomed everyone. And 8,000 years later, androids have replaced humanity and the Earth was invaded by aliens who also have gone extinct because, 8,000 years is a really, really long time. But there are direct references to the first game's story. The most obscure of these is the Class 1 Patient Health Record, documenting the progress of Nier's daughter/sister as Patient Zero in the disastrous plan to separate human souls from their bodies in order to survive a 1,000-year pandemic. Now, finding this in an alien machine replica of a location from Nier 1 actually creates an enormous direct connection between the events of the previous game and the motivations of the alien machines, albeit one that requires a wiki's worth of reading to fully understand. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 10 best video game reveals that you had to find yourself. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Instagram at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, and you can come check out all of the Warhammer miniatures that I've been painting. Yes, I am a nerd. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself well with love and respect, my friend, because you deserve all of the best things in life, alright? Like love, happiness, and success, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise. You are a massive ledge, and you deserve all of the best things in life, alright? As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.